Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and watching us here tonight. My name's Nate Schwartz. I work for Muscular Dystrophy Canada. I run a youth transition program called Bridges to the Future here in British Columbia. And my job is basically to help youth, again, with physical disabilities transition into adulthood. So it can be any type of issue that's involved with that. But here today, we're doing our first of 3 sessions about let's get serious about CSIL, and this one's called Moving Out. So I'm super excited about it, and again, thanks for tuning in. Today we'll be talking about the different options available to you and the different kind of living models that you can experience and figuring out which is the best for you. And I really want to emphasize that I said that the program is in British Columbia, so it will be geared towards that more so than in other parts of Canada, but we are a national organization. So if you'll see, I think that you've got my contact info, whether it's Twitter or email, or you can leave a comment on the video, and I can put you in touch with the services person in your region. So don't think for 1 second that if you're not in British Columbia, you won't learn anything, because there's programs that are similar in all parts of the country. So yeah, just listen, learn, and if you have any questions, I'm sure you can find me. So that's kind of enough about me. I'm here with Paul Gauthier, who I like to call a CSIL guru. He's been involved with the CSIL program since the beginning. He was part of the founding group 20 plus years ago. So if anyone's going to know quite a bit about it, it's him. But the even more amazing part is not only is he doing that, he's also a 5-time Paralympian, winning the first gold medal in the sport of bocce in 2004. So that's pretty cool and pretty amazing. And he's just recently started up a new organization, Individualized Funding Resource Centre, and it's basically to help people navigate through the kind of government systems for getting funding. I'll let him definitely explain more about that in just a second, but we are happy to have him as well as another staff member from there. And I will let him now talk more about himself and his counterpart and what he's going to tell us about tonight.
Great. Thank you very much there, Nate, for that. Thank you very much, Nate, for that great introduction. Boy, I'm excited about tonight. I think this has been a wonderful partnership, Nate, in regards to the Individualized Funding Resource Centre and the Muscular Dystrophy Canada. We've been working together for many years, solving and creating new programs in this province. And as you said, Nate, one of our big things that we're going to talk about over the next couple of sessions is a CSIL program. And for me personally, moving out was one of the biggest things that I had to do when I turned 19. And there were so many different components that we had to think about. And one of the things that I'm excited about that the Resource Center, the Individualized Funding Resource Center, is doing is trying to be able to give people the tools that they need to be able to successfully move out on their own, and at the same time be able to get some of the supports that they need as well and learn how to do that. And that's where the partnership comes in so well with the Muscular Dystrophy Canada, because that's where they recognize for their members that the importance of being able to have access to information. Information is power, and today we're going to mainly focus in on kind of the options of where to move to, and to start thinking about where to move to. Then in the next sessions, we're going to be talking more about the nuts and bolts on getting home support hours, and then moving into how to be successful on the Individualized Funding Program, the CSIL program. So without further ado, we will start talking now about, I guess, a little bit more about myself in regards to my situation. So when I turned 19, I was living in a group home setting, and for me, I was trying to make a decision about where I was going to live. I knew all my friends and stuff were living in the community, and they had supports and stuff, but I didn't know exactly how to go about doing it. So, but one of the first areas that we needed to start looking at was around where I was going to live. But just to say that Nate put it so well, you know, personal supports for me has allowed, by having the appropriate personal supports, I've been able to become a Paralympian. The opportunity to represent Canada around the world has been incredible. I play bocce ball, and it's an Italian sport similar to lawn bowling. I can't physically throw the ball, so I use a ramp. And the balls are a little bit bigger than a tennis ball. They're leather. It's very much a target sport, and the goal is to be the closest one to what we call the jack ball, which is a target white ball. And you know, to hear the national anthem in 2004 in Greece was just an incredible experience. So yes, you know, and then over 20 years ago, through using my personal experiences, was able to really contribute to the Ministry of Health to look at an innovative program, the CSIL program, and that today is 20 years old now, with over 980 people on the program. So I feel proud to have been part of that founding program and still being involved with it today. So, Nate, should we go to the PowerPoint?
Yes, I believe we should.
That would be great. And then so that was so we just talked a little bit about myself, and so now we're going to start talking about what housing options generally get presented. So we'll turn here, and what I mean by that is it just depends on who you speak to. If you meet with the health authorities, quite often, and you're in the process of moving out, quite often, the options that are getting laid out are looking at all components. You know, from perhaps living at the hospital to actually being offered facilities such as George Pearson Center, you know, and group homes, or to remain where you are. And sometimes there's a lot of pressure in regards to looking at remaining where you are. And I know for myself, turning 19 and living in a group home setting for, the last 7 years, for me, wasn't interested in moving into another group home. I was very much interested in looking at living on my own. Moving to the next slide. So, and health authorities are becoming very good at being able to look at telling you all the options. And so when people say that there's only institutions available and things like that, that's not necessarily the case. And health authorities are very good now at explaining to you all of the options. So institutions are long-term care, long-term residential care is really something we're going to talk about more. We're going to talk about group homes. We're going to talk about assisted living, share care models, and actually having your own apartment. So these are kind of the 5 options that do get presented, and all of them have their own different pros and cons, and it really depends upon you as an individual. So let's start looking at them. So as we move to the next slide, so all 5 of those options actually have a general eligibility. You do need to be a Canadian citizen. You need to be a resident of BC and 19 years of age or older. If you're around the country, you'll have other similar eligibilities if you're in another part of the country. you know, so where the eligibilities really kick in too is around recently discharged from acute care hospital. So if you're somebody that is in hospital and stuff, they're very much moving towards trying to get people out as quickly as possible out of the hospital setting into another setup. Require care to prevent or reduce the need for hospital or emergency, as I said, and then or if you have a life-limiting illness. So these are kind of the automatic eligibilities, and then each of the 5 options come with their own specific eligibilities too, and assessment criteria and stuff. So moving on to the next slide. So long-term residential care, and a lot of people do refer to them as institutions, and the reason for that quite often is that it's usually a very large place. There's usually anywhere from 20 or 30 to 100 and some on people that are living in the same kind of resident area. It provides professional 24-hour professional supervision and care. It usually provides a room usually, and there's usually a care plan that gets followed. There are outings planned, social and recreational activities. And again, this all just depends upon which of the long-term care facilities that you've moved into. Most of them around the province are usually seniors' homes, and that quite often people, would be living with other seniors. At George Pearson Centre, for example, you'd be living with other people with a variety of different disabilities. Can you turn the slide for me there, Greg? Where they do provide the meals and helps you with your different diets and things, laundry service, medical supplies. But the reality with long-term care, residential care, is that you pretty much are sharing one staff person amongst sometimes 6 people, sometimes 8 people, sometimes even 10 people. It just really depends upon, again, the facility. George Pearson Center does have a policy that that you're allowed to get out of bed once in a day, but if you go back into bed, generally you don't get up again. Usually within the institution setting as well, that you get a shower once a week. You don't get as much choice. You don't have to think about things. Your meals are automatically provided for you, but you usually don't get a lot of choice in regards to the meals that are provided to you. The recreational activities, sometimes you can get some input into those activities, but quite often they're planned out. So that's kind of the long-term residential care area.
So, Paul,
yeah.
I was just thinking here, if you are kind of unsure of what kind of area you want to go into, right? Or what, sorry, not area, but what model you want to use. How easy is it if you decided that, say you started out in long-term care and then said, you know what, that honestly wasn't for me. I'd really like to try out a different model. Is that something that's somewhat doable, or just kind of if you can give people a sense of what happens if you change your mind?
Great. That's a That's a fantastic question, actually, Nate. You know that, um, you know, I want to be pretty straight with everyone, and I think that, you know, sometimes the system tells us that going into a place like George Pearson Center can be a stepping stone for some people, with the idea that maybe you can move into somewhere else. Um, you know, over my years of experience, once you become institutionalized, sometimes it's kind of hard to break out, I guess, from
Yeah.
that four walls, right? In some ways, it does feel like four walls for a lot of people. That's what a lot of people have described to me. Um, do you have the right to move from that institution setting to another model? Absolutely, you do. Um, does it take a lot of work in regards to getting that in place? Yes. Because once you're living in an institution setting, in many ways, when you're trying to move to another location, such as your own apartment maybe, and a subsidized place, you're not looked at as being in an emergency situation, right? You're considered housed, actually, if you're living in an institution. So it does become more challenging, of course, to move from one place to another. We're going to discuss group homes shortly, right? It's difficult to move from a group home into another model because you know um, the group home also depends on your ability to stay there to match up with the other clients, right, that are living there. So absolutely, you're right, Nate, that it is your right to be able to move from one option to another.
Okay, awesome. Well, I just thought that would be something that we should definitely touch on. So thank
For
you.
sure. So now we're going to talk about group homes. And group home settings. There's a number of nonprofit organizations out there that have housing that usually has people anywhere from 4 to 6 people in a group home setting. In a group home, they're usually trying to match people up with similar interests if possible. If you're in a group home setting, quite often that you do get some assistance with some of the different management, but it's all about you still being able to make decisions and be able to work in that group environment. And the group homes can vary, from an actual housing complex to also an apartment building as well. So the group home settings can really work, especially if you are able to find 4 or 5 other people that happen to have similar interests to you. It does provide, in many ways, 24-hour support, depending on the group home setting. Generally operated within a nonprofit organization, and you can turn the page for us there. That to be eligible for the group home, you need to be requiring group home services to be eligible, of course. Back to the matching of people, and still being able to make decisions on your own. When we look at assistive living, which is the next one,
If
um,
if
yep,
we
sorry,
can,
yes,
Paul,
please. Oh, yes,
just
please,
before we go to the next one, if we can go back to
please.
the group home, it's interesting because I know for myself, I did try and talk to a few different people or a number of people using different models to get their thoughts on kind of why they chose what they chose. And I
Yep,
did talk to somebody who was in a group home, and I'm just trying to give people some context here. And it was interesting to me, because this individual, really liked the social aspect of things. So he loved being kind of around people constantly. We did talk about it, and it was challenging in terms of, I don't think he always got to pick his roommates, as it were.
Right.
So I think there was some kind of issues around that, but it sounds like, he got that sort of thing worked out, and I think he said that he's been doing it for 15 years or something, right? And it works really well for him. Um, so that part was really interesting to me, and I asked him if he had kind of any advice for people when kind of thinking about moving out on their own, or if group homes was what he thought or the way to go. And he said that he was actually really nervous about doing it, and he kind of fought it at first, which I think is the case with a lot of people, and youth. It's intimidating, right? So you're going through this huge process. Will it be the right fit? Won't it? And I remember him saying to me, he said, the only thing I can say is, why didn't I do this sooner, right? So that's something, and that's consistent with all the people that I talk to. They might all have their different models and stuff that they're living within, but all of them seem extremely happy with their choices. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, no,
So,
I think I'm really glad you did that. I know that for me, when I was living in a group home setting, the people around me became like my family, right? And the other three individuals I lived with had their own circumstances that they were dealing with, but we kind of seemed to protect one another, and help each other out, and lend support to different things. So, you do create that bond with other people, and and a lot of it also depends on the staffing too, and the staffing models, and trying to find a group home that actually provides good staff training and the ability to kind of to work with you, right? I think is a real key within group homes, and I think there's definitely some nonprofit organizations out there that have done a good job in that. But there are also some that that haven't done a good job with it too. So it's about investigating the group homes that you're thinking about, right? That you definitely want to sorry about that.
no problem.
To have a group home setting that you feel that you're going to be comfortable with. So by investigating them, and meeting the other people that are there is a good way to do it as well. Going and actually seeing the place is a real important thing to do. Okay. All right, next.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Paul, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so, um, so the next one that we're just talking about is another option is assistive living. And assistive living is really where you do get some amount of supports. So things like personal care. So there is, not, it doesn't mean that you need 24-hour support where you need a fair bit of care. But if you actually just need, somebody help you get up in the morning to be able to do a bit of different components, assistive living might be able to meet that. They provide access to usually an area to play games, music area, crafts. Usually provides some weekly housekeeping, a bit of laundry for your personal laundry, and usually the major component here is the 24-hour emergency services. So, this is not this is kind of a stepping stone depending upon the level of physical situation that you have, that this may become an option. Then turning to the next one, just still around the assisted living, is that you pretty much have to be somebody that can make the decisions for yourself, and that you still have enough ability to be able to handle the times that you're going to be on your own, other than the emergency times that they can support you. So that's the kind of the assistive living area. Now, a lot of people would have heard of this one, and that is the share care. And this is where a lot of people with physical disabilities have been able to, be in an apartment building where maybe there's 5 units available, and within those 5 units, there's some places there's 10 units even, for that matter. But they would share the nighttime care and daytime care, and they provide the personal care, the meals, the emergency, and have access to kind of all of the mechanisms that are available through the health authority. And again, this is proven to be a model that has worked for many people. Similar to what you said really earlier, Nate. It's about finding the one that works, and then once you find that it works, people end up pretty happy to talk about it. Usually a shared care model that is tied to a specific unit would mean that you wouldn't necessarily be able to take that care attendant with you. So usually, it would be somebody, the attendants are usually on site because they are working with the other 5 or 6 people as well. So that'd be something for us just to be aware of when looking into the shared care models. Okay, if you turn the next page for me there.
Actually, Paul, I had a question about that. I'm wondering, is there an activity or recreational component to shared care usually, or not?
Good question. Actually, Greg, it just depends upon the setup of the actual units, right? So there may be a shared amenity space, and if there's a shared amenity space, that may be set up. But in this shared care model, usually there's not like an arts and crafts area, or they don't usually run any music things like in the assisted living area, right? So in the shared care one, this is very much based on you being in your units and just sharing an attendant amongst the individuals. We're starting to see more. Vancouver Resource Society has just been, and another couple of our organizations have started looking at how maybe through the CSIL program, that you could share care amongst each other, where you actually pool in resources and stuff. So, but this share care model that we're generally talking about is kind of a setup within an agency system, and Vancouver Resource Society has been one of the leaders in that, in regards to doing this. So, so eligibility-wise, basically, it's similar to most of them, that that your current environment is no longer meeting your needs, that you require daily assistance with personal care, and again, you have to be able to direct and fully manage your disability. So that means that you need to be able to recognize or be able to communicate with staff to be able to let them know that they need to keep an eye out on pressure sores or things like that. You definitely need to be able to negotiate and problem solve. Of course, by share caring, right? It means that 1 or 2 staff are amongst 5 or more people. So you will need to be able to negotiate your time slots to be able to get up in the morning or to go to bed at night. And usually there's a pretty good structure put into place, but if you're looking to come in later that night and it's somebody else's time to go to bed, you may want to be able to negotiate with that person to be able to switch times around. Again, it can work very well, and you just have to have the mindset that it is a shared component. Yep.
Sorry, that last question kind of raised some thoughts for me there. So you mentioned kind of talking with other people and seeing if you can move care around, say if you wanted to be out later or not, whatever the case is. How does that work, and kind of how possible is that when people are considering their options?
Yeah, so if you're referring, Nate, more to the shared care model and stuff, right? Basically what has happened is that the health authority in the shared care model has designated so many hours that can go into a particular shared care arrangement, right? So, just for example, everybody may have gotten six hours a day, right, or 4 hours a day, or whatever that magic number is that they've come up with, and so this will determine what the staffing model may look like. So maybe perhaps in the morning they would double up in the morning because most people are getting up at certain hours and stuff. But that ability to switch around and stuff is definitely possible in the shared care model. But again, it just depends on. Sometimes it's medical needs, depending upon the individual. So if someone's got a time slot that that is related to some medical issue that they have, not saying that everybody on shared care has that. That's for sure. But it may be harder to negotiate the moving around at certain times. So usually it's kind of that first setup structure, and you always know that you'll always have those time slots, right? Now it's about going back and actually moving things around. This is the same as getting up in the group home settings and stuff too, by the way. In the group homes, it really does become the ability to kind of, if you want to get up earlier than the other guy, you got to be able to figure that out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and then of course, and then the final one that we're talking about is the independent living side of things, where you remain independent and live in your own home. If that's living with your family, if that's living in your own apartment, in a particular rental unit, becomes the next option. And usually the care services are provided through an agency system or through the CSIL program. And that's something we're going to get into more in our next episode. But, if you're living on your own in one of those circumstances, and either with family or in an apartment, you can get agency support or direct funding. You have to be able to direct your activities of daily living, be able to, because if an agency is coming to get you up in the morning, be able to express how your care is to be done. And you still have access to all of the nursing and rehab tasks, such as occupational therapists and physiotherapists that are provided within the health authority. And I put down respite here as well, because some people, do get home support while living at home and get a respite component, meaning that, the family is still doing the care, and that somebody might be able to come in to relieve for an X number of days, or so many days a week, or that kind of thing. So again, the independent living model, quite often a lot of younger people are thinking about moving away from home. I know that's always a daunting thought in regards to any young person. I know even myself being remembering back then, right, and where I was in a group home setting and I had like 7 mothers and 7 fathers, right, all telling me what I can and cannot do because I was in that kind of group home teenage area, right? And here's the idea of now being able to live on my own, and how am I going to be able to afford to be able to live on my own? I should let you know that if you're somebody with a disability that lives in the province of British Columbia, you are able to apply for persons with disabilities funding, where you can get access to a certain amount of dollars per month to help with everyday costs, such as your meal, cost of living, right? And it's usually around $900 a month. And within that $900 a month, you also have to pay your rent for your apartment. And shortly here, I'm going to be describing some of the housing options that relate into being able to actually pay to get rental subsidies that allows you to be able to use the $300 or $400 a month that you get towards shelter, towards an apartment, into some of these units. But again, to be able to live independently on your own, we're going to discuss this further. But from being able to contact your health authority, you need to prepare to do an assessment for the number of hours you're going to get, and you need to be able to make decisions about your care and come up with a supported lifestyle plan and get the approved hours. And again, we're going to give you the tools that you need to be able to communicate with your health authority, and so that you're able to put your best information forward so that they can help you get the hours that you need in a way that's going to work for you. So looking forward to those sessions. But as we start thinking about, moving out, and perhaps we, take the angle of maybe, living on your own place, and maybe you do want to find an apartment, what kind of home should I live in, and starting to think about that. Greg, we can turn Greg back on again in regards to the PowerPoint. And and these are some of the things that we need to think about, right? Is do I want to live on my own? Am I that kind of person that I would like to be on my own? Should I live with a roommate? Or 2 or 3 roommates potentially. And as you start thinking about 1 roommate or 2 or 3 roommates, what does it mean to actually have a roommate, right? And I don't know if Nate has had roommates and stuff before that he could share.
I have indeed.
Oh, so there's pros and cons, right, Nate?
There's definitely pros and cons, absolutely.
Tell me what any funny stories or anything there, Nate, in regards to a roommate. But the issue is roommates are roommates, right? And you have to live with how they live too, right? And
exactly. There's there's a lot of compromise I've found, right? And it's it's kind of there's similarities to living with your family, except for this way you have to kind of relearn all that stuff, right? So you have to figure out kind of where your strengths are, let's put it that way, and nobody's perfect, right? And then you have to figure out kind of where your roommate's strengths are, and pick your battles, really, right? So if something's not worth getting fired up about, then don't bother, right? And make sure that you don't stress over the little things, but also, and Paul, I'll let you jump in after this, but don't let it fester to the point where you can't stand being around the person, when really it's a bunch of little issues that they may or may not know about, right? So that's just one aspect of having a roommate or multiple roommates, right? But definitely
Yeah.
it's a process for sure.
Absolutely, Nate. And again, it depends on how big the space is, right, and stuff as well, and it's a difference, I think, between roommates and or having a brother and sister. It's very different, right? There's that a brother and sister is always going to love you. It doesn't matter if you
That's right.
break their toys or you break their stuff, right? Or something happens, right? A roommate, it can be pretty serious, some of the things that happen. So, it's about that give and take, and remembering that they're going to be able to have some of their friends come over as well, and share that space, and you're going to have to come up with your rules and stuff, on how that's going to work. So roommates are fantastic because it's a great social aspect, especially if you can find a roommate that you have similar interests with, and that's quite a nice thing to be able to do, and be able to kind of hang out. If you're a student, it'd be neat to kind of, if you decide you want to have a roommate, putting ads up and stuff in the areas that maybe you're going to school in, and there may be some really, all of a sudden some people realizing that the commute from your place would be a great roommate situation. So, and then we move. Yep, go ahead, Nate.
Oh, sorry, I'll just jump in really quickly, but I will say that I think for a lot of people, you kind of moving in with friends is a good idea, right? But you also have to be aware that if things don't go well, that can ruin friendships. And I think that was something I was aware of. So I've done both, where I've lived with friends and found roommates that I didn't know before, which was an interesting process for another day. And now I'm back to living with a friend, and it's going really well, right? And I've never had major issues, but I think that's something you want to be aware of, because it sounds really good, but just be aware that if something does happen, it can change things for sure.
Absolutely. And then just finish out this conversation that we're having, myself being somebody with a disability, would I be interested in sharing an apartment with another person with a disability? There can be some real advantages to that, and disadvantages, right? So might be an opportunity to be able to share hours together, right? If you're both been able to get 4 hours a day and now you've got 8 hours a day, you might be able to do some creative things around that, especially nowadays with the CSIL program. And if you're able to get, both of you get 6 hours a day, the things you can do with that too. And then the idea of, someone being a roommate that may be someone that can help you with your care, might be another aspect. So, because we were talking about friends being roommates, just being friends, and, but maybe there's a roommate that's, that would be a friend that, you might be able to provide them rent for free, for them to be able to do certain tasks, right? Maybe that roommate can prepare your meals for you, or be the one that maybe keeps the place in order, and that way they don't actually have to pay rent, maybe. So those are some creative things and ways to do that. Now Nate, you got any comment before I move on to the next point?
I do. I was just being aware. I'm not sure how many more slides we want to get through.
Yeah.
But I would, if you can quickly comment on kind of, if you're going to do that, where your friend can assist you with care, is there any type of things you should be aware of, or pitfalls, or kind of balancing that act between being a friend and being a care attendant, right?
Absolutely. And you know what, Nate? We'll probably be able to get even into that more when we talk about the CSIL program, because we're going to have a good discussion about, friends becoming employees, right?
Mhm.
So in many ways it's similar. And so, but I would just say here, you're right. You know, it changes. The reality is, depending upon what they're doing, if it's a matter of just doing maybe some housekeeping or things like that, but as soon as you know, take the turn to change it to doing some of the more intimate personal care, maybe helping you go to the bathroom or maybe helping you go to bed at night and stuff, it does change the dynamics. And this is where communication becomes a real key. And being able to outline boundaries and stuff. Because you don't want the friend to feel that you're taking advantage of them. You know, because, you know, every time you see them, you're asking them to grab a pencil off the floor, or you're asking them to turn on the computer for you, or, you know, those things seem so minor, right? But
Mhm.
to somebody who's able-bodied that, you know, seems to come out of the room and all of a sudden you're asking them for something, you know, that's something just to be aware of, you know, when you're looking at kind of a friend, roommate that's helping you with certain parts of the plan, right, kind of thing. So Nate, you're very right. It's something that's delicate, and the biggest thing is communication. And if you can lay things out at the very beginning and then you both stick to it, right? There's little things that come up, that's no problem. But it's when, you know, if you've agreed that it's, you know, rent is free and you're rolling me over once in the night, if that's what the agreement is, that's what the agreement is.
Yeah.
And try to not go away from that. You know, if it's you know, just cooking meals, that kind of stuff, right? So, anyway, so really important discussion, Nate, to have and to think about when it comes to a roommate. So now we're going to talk, Nate, about you know, what community, where do I want to live, right? And you know, where do I want to call home is what I'm calling this slide. And you know, and this is an important one to really start thinking about. You know, do I want to choose a different community? Do I want to stay in the community that I'm currently living in now? You know, what is it? What is it that is important to me that makes community my home? You know, you're obviously looking for wheelchair accessibility. If you're somebody in a wheelchair, if you're somebody who uses other different ways of being able to get around, it just needs to be whatever the accessibility environment that you need. You know, is being close to friends or family important to you? And that's something to think about. You know, if you're going to school, you know, is it important, and you know you're going to go to school for the next 5 years, is it better to be closer to that university or college to make it easier for yourself? You know, some people have thought about and has been successful on staying on campus at the universities, and they've had some really interesting possibilities. Some of the rooms and stuff have been very good and very spacious on campus. So, and then you know, thinking about community centers and you know, that's in your area, and then on the right side, we kind of talk about other amenities, right? Is the library, the mall, grocery stores. I know for myself, when I started to make my second move, I sat down with my family and started making a big list of all of what was important to me in an area of where I was going to live. And, you know, I want to let you know that I probably, out of the 30 or 40 items, I did not get all 30 or 40 items of everything that I wanted in a home. It's just not possible. So I had to give and take in certain areas, right? So, you know, part of it was, you know, the accessibility of the home and how much renovations was going to be needed. You know, did it have a roll-in shower already? Did it not? You know, those kinds of things were very important to me. Yet I also wanted to be close enough to transportation. I really wanted to be able to at times be able to jump on the SkyTrain if needed, that kind of thing. So, so things to really think about, and and things, it doesn't hurt to sit down and make that list of 20 or 30 things, and then kind of start the lookout for it.
I really like that, Paul. I just wanted to jump in just for a second. I think it's really important that you do a lot of thinking about where you want to move. I have heard from some people that there is such a thing as being too picky, but you definitely, like, this is a long-term decision and you want it to work for you, right? So I think making that list and deciding, take the time to say, out of these 20 or 30s, like, do your best to rank them as well, to see if, like, what is more important, because I think in the long run, that'll lead to a better decision and better happiness. So.
Absolutely, yeah, well said, for sure. And and just definitely keep on thinking about the community you've already lived in, right, and relationships you've already developed in that area, and and maybe you want to get rid of those relationships, but if, but if not,
yeah.
think about that for sure. Okay, so kind of the top four places to start looking for housing is the Co-op Federation of BC, the BC Housing, Metro Vancouver Housing, and BC Nonprofit Housing. And I'm going to quickly go through these. I know, I think we have enough time here. We're doing pretty good. So, and by the way, if anyone's got questions and they are on live at all, to definitely type them in, and if you have that, to please go ahead and just type it in there.
Absolutely, and I will go through them after and kind of get things figured out. So definitely do comment for sure. Sorry,
okay, so no, not at all. So in regards to Co-op Housing Federation of BC, you'll see the link there. Definitely want to make note of that link. You'll have access to this information by either contacting Nate or myself. We can get this information over to you if you're not able to write it down now. But just in regards to a cooperative, members own a cooperative. So there's what I mean by that is that you purchase shares into a co-op. And when you purchase shares into a co-op, you become part of, in many ways, become part owner of that building. And there's a board of directors that gets formed, and you become a voting member of that building. And members there work together to maintain the building. So there are different committees. There's membership committees, there's maintenance committees, there's recreation committees, finance committees, the whole 9 yards in regards to maintaining a building. So share purchases can anywhere from $500 up to $2,000. There has been higher ones, but usually it's from $500 to $2,000, depending upon if it's a single unit or double, 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. There are ways to be able to get the share purchased paid for with supports through PWD. There are ways to be able to get it through a banking system as well that works on this. We can get that information out to those that are interested if you find a co-op that works for you. What's nice about the co-ops is that generally the co-ops were built in the last 20 years or so, and they were bigger. They were bigger units actually, and which is really nice actually, because you end up with some of the co-ops that have living room space and bedroom space that are a little bit bigger. So on this website, you'll find a list of units where you can apply, and we, really strongly recommend that you start looking on this website, start looking at the communities that you're interested in, and actually apply directly to the co-ops that you're interested in, and yeah, you'll find the website to be very, very helpful. We'll go to the next slide.
And I'm just going to jump in for a second. I'll try and keep it short.
Sure, please.
Oh, well, you might actually be getting into it, so I'll let you continue, and then if it's not covered, I'll jump back in. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Things that you want to consider when you are applying for a co-op is, again, remember that you are taking part in the building life, and you're working as neighbors and friendly neighbors, and so when you go, you actually get interviewed, and you usually get interviewed by a panel of people, and it's really good to go with a letter prepared in regards to kind of the what makes you a good candidate to be a co-op member, and that's talking about community living, and the idea of wanting to get to know your neighbors, and having that friendly feel of community. Being ready to offer your time for the committee work is really important. And the more you can investigate about the co-op, do they have a garden area or not? And if you are interested in gardening, to talk about that and how you'd like to be part of that. If they have a social committee, is it collecting bottles and stuff to raise money for the committee to do different things? And just really remember that there is no landlord. You are the landlord. And so you need to be prepared to answer kind of interview questions, things like, what would happen if somebody upstairs is banging a lot on the ground, or if how sometimes it feels like someone's skateboarding on top of you, that you don't just call somebody else to deal with the problem, that you actually try to deal with it first by actually communicating with the person, that kind of stuff. So so co-op living is a really great option, and take a look on that website for co-op stuff, for sure. A lot of good information. Nate, I'm going to keep rolling now, okay?
Yep.
Is that all right? Okay.
Absolutely, yep.
So this is BC Housing, and BC Housing is kind of one of the main places that it'd be really important for you to fill out an application form. It's kind of the pivotal point to getting access to subsidized housing. So you basically go to the website, and you can go and find housing. There's different areas there on the website, specifically under people with disabilities. There's an eligibility area, how to apply for housing to be available, that kind of stuff. What we recommend always doing is to either fax a copy of your application form in to BC Housing, or make sure you photocopy an application, because sometimes if you send it by mail, it can get lost in the mail and stuff, and then that way you've actually physically got a copy of the BC Housing form to resubmit again if necessary. But BC Housing is one of the key places, and look at the registry. They do have some information on the registry where you can get the information. Moving on, and there's little sections where there's a little W and stuff that indicates wheelchair accessibility and stuff too.
And I'll just jump in for a second, Paul, because I know we're kind of crunched for time here, but these are things I can help with as well, and our other services staff across the country. So if you even just have questions, or if something isn't making sense, don't let that intimidate you, right? That's what we are here for. So just be
Absolutely.
aware of that.
That's really good, Nate. And I think that, Nate, this doesn't turn off right at 7, or does it turn right off
No,
at
it should
okay.
be good to go. It's just
We're
more for
okay.
you than anything.
Okay, you're okay for us to go over a few minutes? Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Mm-hmm.
We'll get through this part pretty quick, but really important information here, and that under BC Housing, I really wanted people to know about this home adaptation for independence. It is $20,000. That is a grant that you can get to get modifications to your home. There is eligibilities and stuff in regards to your income levels, and that if you're not over a certain amount in rental amount, you may be eligible for this grant. And a lot of people don't really know how it operates, and there's a way to fill out this application. Again, it's something Nate and I can help you with, but it is $20,000. So, and I'm thinking about people that are automatically thinking about door openers, and roll-in showers. Those are kind of the big expenses that a lot of people think about. Sure, they'll help with grab bars and things like that too. But I know a lot of people thinking about roll-in showers, taking out the tub and making it so that the commode chair can go right into the shower area. So they do have within their websites other information around assisted living and stuff as well. If you turn the next slide, kind of a little bit more, in regards to the housing registry and stuff. There is a 1-800 number, so you can call the housing registry directly. Then we look at the Metro Vancouver housing, and it's another area where there is housing at times available, and they have an actual area on their website where you can actually go now, and each week is updated regularly. And there's an area there that so you go into the areas, maybe you're looking for Vancouver or Surrey or something, and it'll say modified amongst the available unit. So that's something for you to look at for units that might be available. There's also a phone number for 4 different regions, and you can actually put your name to those 4 different regions to actually ask them to keep you updated too. The next one is the BC Nonprofit Housing Association, and and again, this is another good resource of nonprofit organizations that actually have housing that is being developed. And so you'd be able to get access to information about housing that's being developed at the moment. And it's amazing how many of these different housing providers and stuff are saying that it's been difficult to connect people with disabilities with housing that is available. So we really want to keep on working these channels to try and get them people with disabilities that are interested. The next one is around the Spinal Cord Injury BC, and they have a website that they keep updated in regards to any new rental units that are becoming available. They also have owning units and stuff as well. So they have a really great resource of information that you should take a look at. You can also get onto their housing listing as well. They send out an email to anybody that would like to be on their circulation. So anytime a new unit becomes available, it can actually be sent to you. So that's something that you may want to do. And that's just by contacting them on their hotline, and they can ask them to be put onto that list. Then Vancouver Resource Society is another really good nonprofit organization that has been doing innovative housing for many, many years now. And they are currently working on developing new units. So they do the shared care models. They have group home settings. They are working to be innovative around the CSIL program and being able to help people share perhaps for nighttime care in some of the units that they're working with around the developers. But there are other nonprofit organizations that are doing this as well. But VRS definitely has been a leader in this over the last couple decades. And then we get to talk about what's coming up, Nate.
Yes. So in a couple weeks from today, on January 29th, as you see there, and again, it's from 6 to 7 p.m. actually, in terms of the live broadcast. But we're basically going to talk about what is CSIL. So we've talked about a number of different kind of options today, but we're going to delve specifically into CSIL, what it is, and so that you can be informed about if that is the right decision, kind of what goes into that.
Exactly, and then after we go through that component of kind of being able to get the appropriate amount of home support hours and things, and being able to help you with preparing for that, we then get more into the nuts and bolts of how to be a successful employer and kind of some of the different tidbits and stuff. Obviously, we do 1 hour sessions and stuff, so we're just touching upon these different topic areas. But I think I know for Nate and I, it's been enjoyable to take this hour and to spend it with you, and I hope that everyone got a chance to get something out of this presentation today.
Absolutely. And before I kind of close things up officially, Paul, I just had one kind of last question. In terms of the different options that we've talked about, do you have any advice in terms of what people should consider, or kind of going through the process, kind of what's the better fit for you? And you know, maybe it's not CSIL, maybe it's group home, or maybe it's, you know, maybe it is being in a more institutionalized setting. I don't know. It depends on the person, right? So do you have any advice, Paul, for people when going through that decision-making process?
Sure, and you know, my biggest advice is, you know, it is okay to dream, for one. It's okay to be thinking about what your future is going to look like. It's okay to think about, you know, what kind of life you want. You know, I think we got a young group of people watching this episode, and I'm thinking about what do you want to do in life, right? So as you think about what your goals are in life, that might actually help you determine what might work best for you in your housing circumstances, right? So I think that, you know, some of it is you deciding, you know, are you a very quiet person, or are you somebody who's a very outgoing person? And I think you need to kind of start, you know, thinking about those things. I think that, you know, today we've provided some really good options, and I think my biggest advice would be to go check them out. You know, go take a look. You know, if somebody tells you there's a great group home and you need to consider it, or an institution model system, go take a look at it for yourself to determine, is that really something you would want to do or not to. You know, take a look at somebody's apartment building and the setup of individual units and stuff. Take a look at that. You know, and I think you'll find that by actually going and exploring those, that will help you out a lot in deciding what you would like for yourself.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. I couldn't have ended it better myself, so I'll try to keep this short. I'd like to thank you and Greg for taking the time to be with us today. It's been really informative, and I've quite enjoyed it, as well as the viewers who have watched or are watching with us or will watch this in the future. Ask you to please join us next time on the 29th for What is CSIL from 6 to 7 p.m. on the same channel here. I'll put the link up shortly. And lastly, with the comment function, you feel free to give us your feedback. We want to provide the best product possible, and I'm confident that I speak for both Paul and myself. And your feedback is a huge part of that. So please do comment and let us know what you thought, and we will take those into account moving forward. So thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Nate.